Breaking news out of Texas, Bigfoot is real.
For decades, researchers have been trying to communicate with Bigfoot. But have you ever wondered who he is trying to communicate with?
From a young kid's fascination with Bigfoot, turning out into a future encounter with a large creature that he captures on camera, to countless civilians recording the creature on tape, the truth is out there. Bigfoot has been found, and it's not only this one case. Let's dive deeper into the mystery. Statistically speaking, Washington State has seen more than 676 reports of witnesses encountering the creature, or what they thought to be Bigfoot. California is followed by 445. As much as skeptics want to claim that this elusive creature does not exist, the evidence of the witness reports is too compelling to ignore. In the United States alone, there have been over 10,000 sightings. However, the mention of Bigfoot did not begin merely a few decades ago. Its name goes way back to the Native American folklore of the different mythical creatures in the woods. Throughout history, Bigfoot has been known to be an elusive beast that avoided contact with humans. For this reason, when a hunter from Pennsylvania claimed to have taken a picture of Bigfoot,
a hunter from Pennsylvania claims he took a picture of Bigfoot.
Many people found it difficult to believe him, claiming that the evidence he had was unreliable. This has continued to make many people doubt the existence of the creature even more. However, there are those who are determined to prove the existence of Bigfoot in the North American forest, leveraging the power of modern technology. Tony Harris, the lively host of the television show The Proof Is Out There, is one of them. It's been said that Bigfoot exhibits nocturnal behavior, perhaps to hunt or to avoid detection.
It's been said that Bigfoot exhibits nocturnal behavior, perhaps to hunt or to avoid detection.
Knowing this, Tony enjoys investigating undiscovered and elusive beings like Bigfoot. Together with his team, Tony is always prepared to investigate any brand new evidence that may provide an explanation for long-running myths, including Bigfoot. And the universe rewarded him. Dad and son's encounter in the woods. Tony came across filmmaker and researcher Stacy Brown Jr. during one of his expeditions from Florida's Crawfordville. Ever since Stacy was a kid, his father sparked his interest in the supernatural. They both shared an interest in the supernatural, including UFOs and mythical beings such as Bigfoot. For this reason, they consistently spent numerous nights in the woods as a way to spend more time together as they searched for the mysterious Bigfoot. However, their first encounter was not what they expected at all. Stacy recalled a specific day when his father called him just before lunch, asking him if he wanted to spend that evening looking for Bigfoot. Hearing this, Stacy was not only excited because of the benefits of these adventures and interest in Bigfoot.
Dad called me around lunchtime and asked me if I wanted to go Bigfooting that night. He had sold his boat so he could buy a thermal camera, and he wanted to get back into it. So we headed to Torreya State Park. We walked about a mile and a half down to the Rock Creek campsite.
But it also brought him closer to his father in their shared enthusiasm for exploration. And so, they went into the woods. However, nothing could have prepared Stacy and his father for the terrifying encounter they had in May 2011. On that fateful night, Stacy and his father were hanging out at their cabin as they proceeded with their research. Initially, it seemed like any regular night, nothing unusual, but then something happened. They heard a knock from outside. At first, they were a little surprised to hear it since they didn't expect to see or be visited by anyone at that time of the night, not to mention being deep in the woods. They expected most people to be scared of the dark woods, but the sound they heard was no ordinary sound. It was distinct, as if someone or something were knocking on a tree. Being both confused and terrified at the same time, Stacy's dad tried to brush it off by saying that it was the wind blowing branches in the night.
So we're just cooking out, had some ribs on the grill, and as we're standing there, we start hearing knocks. And I was like, that ain't the wind, you know?
And I said, we'll find out what this is.
After noticing the tension growing inside them. But the knocking continued. Stacy was scared and his heart raced. Noticing the situation they were in and not knowing the dangers lurking, his father asked him if he had carried his gun. This really made Stacy feel uneasy since he had never heard his father ask for a weapon, nor had he seen him using a gun for a long time, despite him being a retired ranger. For his dad to ask for a weapon, Stacy knew that this had gotten serious fast and that his father was terrified, something he had never seen in his entire life. Whatever was causing the knocks, Stacy and his father wanted to find out. And curiosity got the better of them. Not knowing what to expect, they armed themselves, grabbed their gear, and stepped outside, trying to stay as quiet as possible. The woods were eerily silent except for the occasional knock echoing through the trees. They got out of the cabin looking sharp and with their arms drawn. Suddenly, they saw movement. Something big darted between the trees, just beyond the range of their flashlights. It moved on two limbs, and it was ridiculously fast. Speaking to an interviewer, the father said, "So we're walking down the trail and we would hear something running on our right, then we would hear something running on our left, and then looked up at the tree and he's like, 'Oh, I see something.'" Determined to find out what it was, Stacy and his father chased after the creature, running through the dark woods. As they looked around, they saw it again. It was a large, upright figure moving through the trees. Although it was a little far away to see any details in the darkness,
Out walked this big thing, and I just froze. The hands are just enormous. If it grabbed somebody by the throat, it could just pinch your head right off.
the shape and the way it moved were unlike anything they had ever seen in any creature native to the area. To them, it was not a bear, and it was definitely not a gorilla. It walked on two legs, just like a human, but was far larger, standing over 7 feet tall and covered in thick hair. With good luck, Stacy's father managed to snap a photo just before the creature disappeared into the darkness, and their thermal camera mysteriously went off. They were left standing in the woods, out of breath and in confusion, as they tried to understand what they had just witnessed. Had they just encountered Bigfoot? After they felt safe and loosened the tension, they examined the footage they had captured. It left them in pure disbelief. The thermal image showed a massive, heat-emitting figure that couldn't be explained as any known animal in the area that they were familiar with. The photo, while not entirely clear, showed enough to convince many that they had encountered something extraordinary. Stacy and his father knew that what they had witnessed was something real, and it couldn't easily be dismissed. To them, there was no way it could be a human being in a costume, since the thermal image would have given them out, since it would only take the heat signature of the human inside and not the costume. Acknowledging this, they were both terrified and extremely curious about their discovery. They must have seen Bigfoot. Stacy was so shocked by this idea that he insisted on returning. Recalling this, his father said, "He stated that we must return. It takes off and crosses this gap. Now, mind you, I don't see what he's seeing." And he goes into full-blown panic mode. The camera goes dead. He's like, "We gotta go. We gotta go." He's like, "Dude, you got your gun and are unable to leave such a remarkable discovery."
When we got in the truck and he showed me the footage, I was like, "You mean you tell me we're just gonna leave now that we found Bigfoot?" And he was like, "Hey, you can go down there yourself, dude. I'll give you the camera and I'll sit right here in the truck." But I didn't want none of that, so we rolled out.
Stacy was ecstatic about the discovery and wanted to go back and look for it, but his father wasn't so sure about going any further. Despite his excitement making his heart race, his cautious father suggested that they should head back. Although Stacy reluctantly accepted not chasing after their discovery, he was unable to forget what he had seen that night. Seeing that there was not much he could do, Stacy decided to send the footage to Cliff Barackman because he was frustrated but too afraid to go on the expedition alone, considering how scared his father was. Cliff is a well-known researcher of Bigfoot. Receiving the video, Cliff responded quickly, eager to investigate and gather evidence of the existence of the creature. However, neither Stacy nor his father were ready to return to go with him. Cliff had the understanding and bravery that neither Stacy nor his father had. He planned a thorough investigation of the area, hoping to acquire additional Bigfoot evidence. Seeing Cliff's dedication, Stacy was happy and relieved that someone experienced would be in charge, since he and his father clearly couldn't handle this adventure. Not because they were not good enough, but because Cliff was better equipped technologically and financially. But they are not the only ones who have seen the elusive Bigfoot. Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization discovery. In one of their Bigfoot expeditions in Yellowstone Canyon, the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization, RMSO crew was setting up camp. Unfortunately for them, they had gotten to the canyon after dark, so they had to set up at night. When they first got there, they heard what they thought were some vocalizations in the woods that did not resemble any animal they expected to encounter in the canyon.
When we first got here, we heard what we thought were some vocalization. Got the camera out and set it up, and they've stopped. But we're gonna go ahead and just film ourselves setting up camp if we get the vocalizations while we're setting up.
These vocalizations were similar to countless others they had been sent in recordings by witnesses who had claimed to have encountered Bigfoot. In an attempt to record everything they would experience during the expedition, they set their cameras first before their tents so as to capture any strange sounds. This is because the strange sounds occurred spontaneously and without order. Based on their research and countless witness confessions, Yellowstone Canyon had a lot of Bigfoot sightings and vocalization reports that came from the area where they were camping. This was something they had also experienced in their previous expeditions in the same area. The strange vocalizations in the middle of the night were a common thing, but that's not all they had found. In one of their previous expeditions, they had found a 15-inch footprint in this wilderness and made a cast out of it. On top of that, they had found samples of hair that nobody had been able to identify which animal they belonged to. Based on experts' opinions, the hairs were not from a bear, nor did they belong to a wolf or any animal known to exist in the region by modern scientists. But things were just beginning to get weird. As one of the crew members was snapping some twigs and some bigger sticks in the forest, about 200 yards from where she was collecting the firewood for a fire, she heard a big tree getting pushed down. It seemed like a huge tree. Prior to this, they had heard some strange wood knocks. The knocks were so intentional, as if something hiding in the woods was trying to communicate. They were shocked since they were the only ones in the wilderness at that time. So that was a little weird for them. What was more scary was the fact that a whole big tree got pushed over and fell. There was no wind strong enough to do that.
Whole big tree just got pushed down. A big, huge tree. It sounded like it was a lot of noise. And we're the only ones out here. So that was a little weird.
And lumberers were not working in the woods at that time. Trying to understand what had caused the trees to fall in the night, the crew got analytical. For the few days they were up there, as far as the weather goes, nothing more than just a slight breeze had hit them. But the tree sounded like it was forced and shoved over to the ground pretty violently, and then the following morning, they heard a wood knock near the same area the tree had fallen. Since the crew was not yet convinced that it was Bigfoot that caused the felling of trees because they also heard a bear vocalization the previous night, they had to keep digging for other clues. To support their claim, they said that bears, too, had the capability to be aggressive, but they still had to figure out how a single bear could destroy such a large tree. But why did they choose this specific area to explore? Right up near their camping site, there was a mountain ridge, and Bigfoot was known as a ridge walker. Knowing this, the crew had a game camera, and the whole expedition pointed in the direction of the ridge because they thought that they would get lucky and that Bigfoot would come across this ridge. At this point, the crew thought that if Bigfoot decided to get curious about them and decide to come closer to their campsite, they would get lucky and capture him on that camera. To get more findings, the RMSO crew decided to hike down to where they had cast a footprint 3 years ago and found all that hair that hadn't been identified. Although they did not believe that the hairs belonged to Bigfoot, the Bigfoot footprints next to these strange hairs had them thinking otherwise. About 3 or 4 miles from where they had set up camp was Moon Lake. This place had its fair share of countless Bigfoot sightings, and the evidence was too compelling. Excited about the hike, one of the crew members was heard saying,
I hope you guys enjoy going out to Bigfoot sighting hotspots, Bigfoot sighting locations with us. We really enjoy it in our search for Bigfoot. Hopefully we get lucky and lightning will strike twice in the same spot, and maybe we'll get lucky enough to get a Bigfoot sighting too. Getting ready to hike down to Moon Lake. We're in Yellowstone Canyon and we're right where we found the hair, and I'll zoom in into the area that we found the hair.
And then they found it. The crew found more hair alongside some huge footprint tracks that were not too far from the hair. They cast a 15-inch footprint. The footprint was right beside these trees. On top of that, the footprint was found near the place where they had heard the trees fall the previous night. Not too far from there, They also found a lot of hair. Seeing this, they carefully collected samples so as not to contaminate them, and they followed a set of 11-inch footprints to see where they would take them. In their expertise, they didn't think those hairs belonged to the Bigfoot creature with 11-inch footprints, because there was a lot of gray in this long, black, musky-smelling hair. But anyway, they kept tracking the 11-inch footprints. After searching for a while, they found it alongside 15-inch footprints. Were there many Bigfoot-like creatures walking alongside each other? Talking about the newly obtained casts, the head of the expedition said,
I'm gonna lay it right back down to where we pulled it up. Right here, and the trackway started across that clearing into those trees. And just inside of that tree line is where Brody found the big 2 clumps of hair that we collected. Just a few hundred yards after we found the 11-inch footprints, we found this big old tuft of hair. We don't know what it is, if it's moose or bear or whatever, but we're gonna collect it. We're gonna collect it, and I don't know if we ever run into anyone that's an expert on that, they can put it under a scope and see if it matches up with any known hairs.
At this point, the evidence of the existence of Bigfoot was too compelling. They had obtained hair unknown to any animal in the region, and on top of that, they had obtained new footprint casts. They also did see some 17-inch footprints. The footprints were spread all over the jungle as if the creatures were walking and maneuvering through the trees at the same time. With all these findings, they still wondered why there were inconsistencies in the color of hairs they found. They wondered if the creatures whose prints and hair they encountered were of different ages. Regarding this, one of the crew members said,
we might as well collect them both. We found 17-inch footprints last week, so if that happens to be Bigfoot, maybe it's a 17-incher, maybe he's an old one with gray running through him. I don't know, the alpha male up here is pretty damn raunchy. Look, there's more hair.
It's gray too.
There's so much gray through it. And this time of year, moose have short hair. That moose that we just saw had short hair.
Holy hell. It looked like something scalped.
Well, we're not sure if this is Bigfoot hair, but if we can find an expert to analyze it for us.
Yellowstone Canyon and Moon Lake are just right up over the mountain's ridgeline. Knowing that Moon Lake was a very popular place to get Bigfoot prints, and the crew had received reports coming from there and vocalizations too, they kept hiking on its trails. They hoped to film the creature on camera to once and for all shut the skeptics' mouths. Yet there is more evidence of Bigfoot. Doug Teague's encounter with Bigfoot.
Then a rock was through. She chased it. I just kind of stopped, took the phone out, gazed the hill, kept looking. He's still up here.
In 2019, a Hickory resident and Bigfoot hunter, Doug Teague, filmed what he claimed to be one of the clearest videos of a North Carolina Bigfoot ever seen. He was walking his dog in the woods just outside the city. While checking some trail cams, he heard a loud knocking in the distance. He got closer, spotted an unrecognizable creature on top of a ridge, and began recording it. He followed the huge creature's footprints and took casts of them. Doug claimed that, as he got close to the creature, it began throwing stones at him, something a bear or another animal could not do. Later, the footprint casts were looked at by an anthropologist who thought that the footprints belonged to a creature about 15 feet tall, something other experts agreed to. This is the approximate height of Bigfoot, according to various sources and myths. But could what Doug saw be the real deal? Or was it just another human being dressed in a gorilla costume? Another alleged Bigfoot encounter happened in 2020 in San Gabriel Wilderness, California. As a hiker pulled out his camera to record the stunning landscape, he spotted a creature among the trees below and zoomed in. The creature seemed to be around 10 to 15 feet, although it wasn't moving. This claim of seeing the creature was dismissed as the area was not a regular Bigfoot sighting spot, but those are not the only claims of evidence of the creature being found. A well-known explorer, Eric Shipton, famous for conquering many of the world's inaccessible peaks, told his own story of the Bigfoot, or rather what he thought to be Bigfoot. In 1951, Shipton climbed Mount Everest, and while passing through the Menlung Basin at an altitude of about 19,000 meters above sea level, He claimed to have come across Bigfoot. He encountered a footprint 13 inches long in the snow, unmistakably of a giant monkey-like creature. He took pictures comparing the size of the footprint to his pickaxe to demonstrate the gigantic size of the footprint. The trail of the footprint stretched for about a mile and then disappeared. Shipton was not lucky enough to have direct contact with the creature during his journey through the thick snow and rocks. Maybe this was his lucky day, as nobody knew how dangerous or violent the creature was when in close proximity to humans. As if that's not enough proof, in 2015, a mushroom hunter got more than he asked for when hunting for rare mushroom species from a forest in northern Illinois. He recorded a rare type of clip and uploaded it to his YouTube channel, Tomorrow's Garden. As he recorded the various mushroom species he encountered, he was interrupted by a loud howling in the woods. The howl seemed to be made by a creature that was in pain, and the howl was nothing like he had ever heard. Although the howl scared him, he assumed that the creature was in pain after eating some of the poisonous mushrooms, judging by some of the mushrooms he had initially encountered with fresh bite marks. Till now, Bigfoot has mostly been associated with the rural mountainous areas in America and Alaska. However, there are several lesser-known Bigfoot sightings in the United Kingdom. For example, in 2021, Lee Brickley, a Bigfoot enthusiast, claimed to have found tracks and claw marks that proved that an ape-like creature was living in the forests of Britain. He found the alleged evidence in Cannock Chase, Staffordshire. Yet this is not the first time this place has had reports of strange creature sightings. For centuries, this 26-square-mile forest has had countless instances of paranormal activity and supernatural phenomena. There have been reports of child spirits, UFOs, werewolves, and sightings of Yeti-like creatures dating back to the 1800s. To prove that his theory was not just a fuss to get people's attention, Lee took pictures of footprints that measured 41 centimeters from toe to heel, nearly twice the size of an average male footprint, and far too large to belong to any native animal of the UK. A month after finding the footprints, Lee found other claw marks close to the same area with a mutilated deer covered in bite marks and its throat ripped out. The funny thing is, these sightings seem to have increased in number since 2019, making many believe that a humanoid creature lurks in these woods of England. All these reported cases and recordings by people from different parts of the world raise the question of whether Bigfoot is a single creature or whether there are other humanoid creatures like it all over the world. With contradicting information from the FBI and citizens, some researchers decided to independently conduct their own research using other scientific methods out of curiosity to try and get to the bottom of it.